Hello ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Welcome back to the Force Feed, the show where I keep you up to date on all most recent gaming news and announcements. Today is Monday, December 12th, 2011. I desperately need to shave, and let's just jump into today's gaming news. Spike TV hosted this year's VGAs over the weekend, and while the event seemed more about the show than the games themselves, we did get some exciting new trailers as well as game announcements. Although there was a whole lot of hubbub and stuff that no one really cares about, we'll go ahead and talk briefly about the things that actually matter to me. Firstly, we saw the trailer for the upcoming Diablo 3. This goes without saying, it is easily one of my most anticipated games of next year. Now this is going to actually be the opening cinematic for the game, so this would be what you would see when you first launch the game. A pretty epic little battle here in an art book style drawing, as well as some cinematics right after the fact. In addition to that, we saw some cinematics for the upcoming BioShock Infinite. It is the same BioShock universe set in a different setting. I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense, but that's what I have to say about it. Also a trailer for Metal Gear Solid Rising Revengeance. Is that a word? Probably. I guess so. I'm not really sure. And then a brand new announcement, The Last of Us. And this is actually going to be a post-apocalyptic game with zombies. Well, as boring and typical as that sounds, this actually looks kind of intriguing to me, at least based on what we have seen so far, with the main story evidently revolving around a daughter and her father trying to survive in this world infiltrated with zombies and not a whole lot else. Although not a lot is known about the game at the moment, I am looking forward to learning more over time. There were a few other things that I found of importance at the VGAs, but we will be getting to those later in this episode. Are you a fan of Zelda but sick of motion controls and the basic form the gameplay has been taking over the past few iterations of the series? Well, hold on to your butts because motion controls are going nowhere. In a recent interview with the official Nintendo magazine, Zelda's producer stated that motion controls, much like they were utilized in Skyward Sword, will be likely staying with the franchise for quite a while. He specifically stated that I honestly do not think we can go back to button controls now. This is kind of odd of a statement. I understand that with the past few iterations of the Zelda franchise, they have been utilizing the motion controls for the Wii. I don't think it would be the end of the world, though, if they went back to button controls. I, in particular, am not a huge fan of the motion control movement. I simply think that they haven't been utilized to their full effectiveness, although Skyward Sword, they are feeling somewhat comfortable in that position and the way they've been using them specifically. But still, it's obviously not fully optimized at the moment, and I don't think developers have got a firm grasp on how to properly use the technology. I am interested to know what you guys think, if you guys think that this type of technology is falling by the wayside. I mean, we aren't exactly seeing a ton of titles that are being published with it, but again, obviously one of the larger and more significant titles would be the Zelda series. But how do you feel about that? Are you a fan of Zelda? Are you sick of those motion controls? And how do you feel about the notion that from this point forward, future Zelda games will also be incorporating them? A new trailer as well as screenshots for the upcoming Gotham City Imposters were recently released. Now this is actually a shooter game set in the Batman universe, clearly playing off of the recent success of the past few Batman titles, specifically looking at Arkham City. Now it's going to be pretty interesting to see how the fan reaction to this when it comes to the Batman franchise is. This is again a shooter game, but it's kind of taking on a joking, more light-hearted type of a role. This isn't a super serious shooter a la Call of Duty or Modern Warfare. But it does look somewhat interesting, and it will really come down to the gameplay, whether or not this is well received. It's something that I'm looking forward to seeing more about. Now, they are supposed to be actually coming out with a beta this month, and the game is set to release on January 10th. So this is something that is coming up right around the corner. I'll be sure to keep you guys informed when we get more information about it. Epic Games' new upcoming title, Fortnite, was revealed at the VGAs over the weekend. Now this is actually set to be a builder-type game a la Minecraft, but with kind of more of a focus specifically on constructing buildings. Now we did get some more information about the game via some Twitter postings from Lee Berry, who is actually project lead on Fortnite. Now some of the questions that he had answered via the Twitter were specifically talking about the inspiration behind the game and basically prying for more detailed information. Now he had stated that it was inspired by Minecraft with a focus on constructing buildings specifically, whereas in Minecraft you can kind of build anything you want. They're focused on constructing buildings. Now in it, some of a little bit of a teaser that he gave us is we could be looking at things like weapon crafting, a leveling system, underground exploration, boss fights, team survival mode, as well as epic loot. Now, clearly in this, they're playing off of the success of Minecraft. There's really no question about that, but it also seems pretty interesting. They talk about things like underground fights. That sounds a lot like Gears of War by Epic Games, and then they're just kind of throwing a little bit of Minecraft in it. Now, this is more of a cartoony type of game as opposed to something like Gears of War, but is obviously a much more advanced version of Minecraft. Now, it isn't going to be as customizable, I would have to assume, as Minecraft is. Again, with Minecraft, you can build everything, but obviously the textures and the graphics and the visuals on this game are much better. Now, I'll be really interested to see kind of the core drive behind this type of game. It feels like, based on the trailer and based on what's been announced, you will be fending off waves of enemies. They look like zombies and just kind of underground dwelling creatures in these buildings that you construct. So it almost feels like kind of a base defense style of gameplay, but he mentions underground fights, he mentions boss battles, so it almost again feels like a mix of Minecraft and Terraria, throwing in a little bit of Gears of War as well with the underground enemies type of thing. But I am interested to see and learn more about this project as it goes forward. I've always stated that, you know, I really like Minecraft, and I don't know if I've talked about it much, but Terraria is a really awesome game as well. To be able to take this to a next level visually, if they can make sure that the gameplay is solid as well, I think that Epic Games has a really solid idea behind this title, and although it is very fresh, I don't think we are anywhere near release, probably looking at another year and a half plus until we get this game in our hands. I am looking forward to following it through its development. Now, a question on this is going to be, how do you guys feel about Epic Games playing off of the success of games like Minecraft and Terraria? There's been this really recent push when it comes to gaming about constructing and building things, again, specifically in these two titles, and Epic Games seems to want to take a piece of that pie, or maybe even expand upon it by adding, again, more graphical fidelity, just a better looking world. Although I do expect the gameplay to, of course, be slightly different, it's still playing off of the general notions of these types of games. Do you think that this is a good idea? Would you like to see them kind of come up with a whole new fresh idea rather than trying to make like visually updated Minecraft and Terraria? How do you feel about Epic Games' new title? And then lastly in news, I do want to mention the fact that we have recently spotted a trailer of the upcoming Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD. Huzzah! I can't wait for this game. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, one of my childhood favorites. I spent so many countless hours on this game, and what I really want to know, in all honesty, is whether or not the soundtrack will be the same, because that was actually one of the biggest things behind my enjoyment of the game. The soundtrack was just phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. And now I will be interested to see how I actually feel when I get my hands on the game, whether my excitement behind Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is more in nostalgia than it is in the actual gameplay. Obviously, as the series progressed, they made a whole lot of positive additions, but the Tony Hawk series in general seems to have really fallen off, so that's why I do feel like they're going back to their roots. Either way, I'm excited to see the game and at least try it out, and once more hoping for a baller soundtrack. Alright guys, that is going to do it for this episode of the Force Feed. As always, stay tuned tomorrow for another episode keeping you up to date on all the most recent gaming news and announcements. Once again, this has been Force, and you've just been force-fed.